Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordy and Glory video. In today's episode we are going to be looking at the good, the bad and the ugly of Hybrid Guard. I'm going to take you through step by step the strengths and weaknesses of this particular Guard playstyle. And with Hybrid Guard being the most common way that the faction is run, whether it is casually or competitively, I hope this video is going to be useful to everyone, Guard players and people who play against Guard regularly. Let's begin with a brief overview of what the hell Hybrid Guard actually is. Unlike a lot of the other Guard playstyles that we've looked at so far, like pure infantry or pure armored, Hybrid Guard is not a skew list. It's all about taking a fine balance of infantry, tanks, and artillery. A typical Hybrid Guard list is going to include a solid foundation of infantry, the infantry core, and there might be between 60 and 80 infantry in a list like this. Some of these are going to be battle line infantry, others could be elite things like Scions and Kazakin, but you're probably going to have about 80 bodies on the board. And this manpower is going to be backed up by some serious firepower, and the main source of this is going to be the tanks. You'll probably find that there's between 4 and 5 main battle tanks in a Hybrid Guard army. This might be a mixture of Leman Russes and Rogel Dawns, but there could be things like Hellhounds sprinkled in there as well. Despite the fact that we're running a lot of infantry in a hybrid list, don't be surprised when there's a decent amount of armor there as well. And all of this is going to be seasoned with a little bit of artillery. This will probably be the smallest part of the hybrid list. It might consist of just a couple of mortar heavy weapon squads, maybe a Basilisk and a Manticore, but there's going to be a little bit of indirect fire to act as the cherry on top. So what are the strengths of running your Guard army in this way? Well, first and foremost, it gives you amazing tactical flexibility. You have a huge variety of units that you can draw upon, but they're all mutually supporting each other. You might go into a game where you face off against a cagey army, someone that's going to try and hide out of line of sight and not really expose too much so they can help it. Well, that's all right because you've got the artillery. You might face off against someone who's going to try and bum rush you down, someone like Orcs who are going to charge in, put you under great pressure. That's all right. You've got the infantry to screen them out, and you've got the tanks who clear them away quickly. You may come across an elite army that's going to try and bring great force concentration to one part of the board. That's okay. You've got enough firepower where you can reach out across the board to mutually support your different parts of the army and your different deployments. And on top of this, if they're elite, you're going to have a great advantage in the objective control game. So hopefully, while they're doing damage, you can focus on primary points. You have an answer for everything. There is a lot of tools in your toolbox. This leads me into the second reason why Hybrid Guard is very strong. It's got unbelievable levels of redundancy. There are a lot of armies out there which have 1 or 2 key units, and you knock those out and the whole thing collapses like a house of cards. You can lose a tank or 2 in a Hybrid Guard army and you've still got 3 left over. You can lose a blob of infantry and you might still have 2 or 3 of them left over. Your elite infantry might come in and die. That's all right. You can spend 2 CP. Those Kazakh can come back into reserve. Those Sounds can go and deep strike back down. You've just got all these different layers where if someone hits one part of your list, it doesn't just collapse. If they hit another part of your list, it doesn't collapse. If they try and hit your whole list at the whole time, take out a bit of infantry and a bit of tanks, well, both of those areas have still got other units that you can draw upon. So there's really, really good redundancy and resiliency in a hybrid list because it's not trying to stand everything on one leg. I'm building on this for a moment. One of the big advantages that Hybrid Guard has is it is not a skew list. If you run a pure tank army and you're going to just blow people off the table with all the firepower that you can get your hands on, whether this is a Guard tank company or a Space Marine Iron Hands detachment, you're focusing on tanks and firepower. Well, that's all well and good, but what if you come across someone who just doesn't care about how much of the army you kill? What happens if you come across someone who's got amazing objective control and they're just going to completely lock you out of primary? Your one trick, your gimmick, as it were, doesn't work. Your skew fails. And so fundamentally, if you've noticed about some of the other guard playsets we talked about, like I mentioned, infantry and mechanized, they have a trick. And if that trick doesn't work, it can very quickly just lead to defeat. But hybrid guard doesn't have that. There's no trick. There's no Achilles heel. There's no one thing you can target. There's no bad matchup or anything like that. It just always can go into any game and be confident that it'll have some tools available to it to at least make a good go of it. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, this army sounds amazing. It sounds perfect. It sounds unbeatable. Well, that's unfortunately not true, because hybrid guard does have one quite ironic weakness. One of its biggest strengths, not being a skew list, can also be one of its greatest weaknesses, because hybrid guard is a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Attention guardsmen, this is an announcement by the Departamento Militarum. Element Games is an official sponsor of the Mordian Glory channel. They offer up to 20% off Warhammer 40k and 10% off bolt action and other game systems. Use the link down in the description to save money and support the channel. Anyone not using the link will be referred to the local commissariat. Also, don't forget that if you use referral code TIM3921, then you will receive double store credit, saving even more money on your future purchases. That's all for now. Fallout! You're going to have good firepower, but you're not going to have the best firepower. You're going to have a good amount of objective control, but you're not going to have the best objective control. You're going to have a decent amount of close combat capability. Got a few free power weapons on those Krieg blobs. Stracker might be in the army as well. But you're not going to have the best close combat. Hybrid guard can sometimes suffer from not being able to keep up with other factions or other lists that specialize in doing one thing really well. When you encounter this kind of matchup, let's say you're playing against a Tau army who's got better firepower than you, the most important thing for a hybrid guard player to do is understand what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are in this matchup. You have to be able to see the opponent's list and see the opponent's army and go, okay, in this matchup, I've not got the best firepower. So I need to not try and engage them in a direct firefight. I need to go to my strengths and try and make my opponent play the game on my terms. And this can be very difficult to do. Your opponent isn't just going to let you do what you want. You need to try and dictate the flow of the game. You need to be able to grab it and hold onto it. Try and get that momentum and keep that momentum. And this is possibly the most difficult thing to do with hybrid guard. It requires a decent amount of experience and understanding, because if you end up getting into a matchup where someone is better at one particular aspect of the game than you are, and you fail to grasp control of the game, and you end up playing your opponent's game and letting them lead the way, then they're going to beat you by using their strength to overpower your weakness. You need to try and hold on and force the game to go in the direction you want it to go in. And if you have got better objective control than they do, that's where you need to focus your efforts. Your firepower is merely there as a distraction. If you have got worse OC and you need to be clearing the enemy OC quickly, that's what you've got to try and play. So it requires a decent amount of understanding of the game and an intimate understanding of your army's strengths and weaknesses in each relative matchup. And on top of this, there is a small ugly to the good, bad, and ugly of this video, which is as resilient as hybrid guard is and as flexible as it is. Unfortunately, this is Warhammer 40k. And so you can build the perfect, most balanced hybrid list, and you can have a really good understanding of how it works and really good game knowledge so you understand every match that you go into. You can do everything right, and yet you get into a match where you're just against an army that is fundamentally better than you. There is a meta in 40k. There are armies which have got more efficient points. There are armies which have got better abilities. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do about it. You can play your best game, you can have good dice, and you can do everything according to plan, but even the best hybrid guard list is still at the mercy of the meta. And what's interesting is, again, sort of coming back to this ironic thing about how its strength is not being askew, but its weakness is also not being askew. When you come across those top meta armies, sometimes the only way you can beat them is with a trick, is with a gimmick. And that's not something, and that's one thing that is missing from the hybrid toolbox. So in summary, hybrid guard is a really powerful, really flexible way of running your guard army that will give you a lot of choices and tools when you're going into any game, casual or competitive. However, its biggest weakness is that it is susceptible to the machinations of those armies and those lists which operate on the extremes in environments that it can't really compete in. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Are you a fan of hybrid guard, or do you prefer specializing your army in some way? And which units do you think are a must-have in a hybrid guard army? If you've enjoyed this video, then don't forget to smash that like button. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm. And of course, subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.